Good morning, Ron.
Good.
There you go. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Leslie should be on in a second too. She'll be moderating for us. But let me just make sure. Are you able to share your screen and all that? Or do I have to?
Host participation is disabled.
Okay, let me just share that with you. That's why I wanted to get on early. Okay. Try now. Where'd you go? I made you co-host. See, if not, if that doesn't work, I'll just make you the host. There we go. Perfect.
We should do it.
Yep, you should be all good. I see everything. So I'll give everyone a chance to get on and know it's a little early. Hmm.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'm gonna just make sure that we're. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, my bad. I
No, no, it's okay. Do whatever you have to do.
was like, how do I go backward in? Yeah. All right, I got it. Okay, very good. Do you want me to share now or share later?
You can keep it up now just so people have something to see when they join, but otherwise we can just hold off for the next couple of minutes and give everyone a chance to get in. I know
Oh,
sometimes it takes until like 9:02, 9:03 for people to get in.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just gonna take care of a few things. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
On.
Okay, we'll just give everyone a couple more minutes. I know we just turned to 9 o'clock.
All right.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ron. Let's give it maybe a minute or two. I don't know how much. Got 6 folks on. All right, I guess we'll start. So good morning, everyone, and welcome on behalf of the Small Business Development Center at Stony Brook University. Thank you for joining us today for our workshop on cybersecurity basics for small businesses. For those who are new to us, the SBDC is part of a nationwide network of business support centers dedicated to helping entrepreneurs start, grow, and strengthen their businesses. Here at Stony Brook, we provide free confidential business advising and training programs designed to support small business owners at every stage. And so in today's environment, cybersecurity is no longer optional. It's basically essential. Small businesses are increasingly targeted by cyber threats, and even basic protections can make significant difference in safeguarding your data, your customers, and your operations and every day. So we're excited to bring you today Ron Gonzalez from RG RJG Consulting Group. He works closely with business owners to strengthen their digital security posture, and he basically works with the fundamentals of cybersecurity for small businesses. Ron, I hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate it. And as always, thanks for holding series like these. It's really great to share this info. We're going to give you, a lot of information today, as well as vendors that you can follow up with for some low cost, no cost solutions. So
That's great.
that's really really good. So thanks again for organizing this and putting this on. I appreciate it. So, hey everybody, my name is Ron Gonzalez, RJG Consulting Group. Been in the IT industry for over 20 years now, and we are, continuously evolving with everything that's transpired in that time. And today we want to talk to you a little bit about cybersecurity, some basics, as well as what we suggest in order to get started. Everything from a one person company all the way to thousands of users if needed. Thanks for your time and attention today. Let's get started. My name, obviously, as I said, Ron Gonzalez. Um, I RJG Consulting Group, my company, does work with small businesses, medium businesses to, implement security technologies and integrate into your company culture so that we can properly address not only your productivity needs, but also make sure that technology empowers your business that so that you can, grow your main focus, right? Because a lot of folks here are probably not going to be, technology focused, right, or tech businesses. You're, focusing on another line of business, whether that's selling a service or a product or developing new products, right? You want to try to focus on that mission rather than business email security and things like that. And that's where we come in. I got my degree from RIT, and I've been a business on Long Island ever since graduation. So happy to be here back home. So let's talk about some cybersecurity risks for small businesses. So 43% of cyber attacks actually target small businesses. A lot of folks, usually really read the headlines, right, of cybersecurity and cybersecurity threats, and it's usually a really big company that's in that headline. But the day-to-day operations, a lot of it is taking aim at small business, and then medium business is another big percentage of that. So over half of most cybersecurity threats are aimed at companies that are either 1 to 100 employees large. So most attacks today are now automated. They are not manually scripted at this point, and they are a lot of them are not targeted, meaning that you as a small business will be facing the same type of cybersecurity attacks as your neighbor and everyone else around you. They're not as targeted anymore as they used to be. Although we do see that from time to time. The main entry point, the most popular one, is phishing and stolen credentials. That's where a cybersecurity threat actor will try to get your username and password to different things, and then try to take advantage of the data in any way they can. You can imagine what it would be like if someone was able to authenticate into a bank account, for example. Another risk, which we'll be talking about a little bit more in depth today, is employees that are increasingly using AI tools and how that impacts your exposure. And when you do fall victim to a cyber attack, there is some pretty impactful events that happen in your business, including downtime, obviously data loss, loss of business, and overall, big hit to reputation or your brand. Cybersecurity events are now starting to expand into social media platforms where they'll want to take control of your social media account to then control your public facing narrative in order for you to, to incentivize you to pay ransom, right, et cetera. So lots of impact there. So the bottom line here is that you don't really need to invest millions of dollars into enterprise level security or enterprise products. To avoid a lot of these pitfalls, you'll just need the basics of cybersecurity done well. And that's what we're going to go over today. So here are the 4 controls that matter the most. These are the 4 things that you really should take a look at when you're starting out your small business, or if you're already established and you have a few employees. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you're doing these 4 things in your business today. First is identity security. So if you have a username or a password, that should, to any tool or web portal, even your own computer, right? That password, that username and password should also be followed up with multi-factor authentication of some sort. An SMS text message that comes to you, an authenticator app that pushes a security code of some sort. This will help you in deterring people who have stolen your credentials. And even if they do steal your credentials, they would also need to have access to your phone. So it's always best to use an authenticator app instead of text message. Or sort of phasing that out. But something is better than nothing. So if you think about all the web portals that you log into today, if any of them are not sending you some sort of second factor authentication when you log in, you should think about replacing that tool, moving away from it, or enabling that feature. If they don't have that feature available, you should definitely move away from that platform, because they are definitely not keeping up with cybersecurity risks at that point. The second is endpoint detection, which is the acronym is EDR, endpoint detection and response with AI visibility. You can think of this as your old school antivirus, but essentially endpoint protection means protection at the level that you're interacting with your software. Some people work on just a mobile device or an iPad. Some people work on a laptop or a computer. Those are your endpoints. And each endpoint should have some sort of endpoint detection software that detects more than just viruses. The endpoint detection software will actually detect risky behavior. What that means is, if all of a sudden your endpoint starts deleting or encrypting hundreds of files at a time, that's risky. Most likely you didn't mean to do that. So it will, stop that action and double check with you, right? Before it continues on. Maybe you are deleting thousands of files, but it will prompt you, right? It will alert you to say, hey, are you sure you want to do that, right? It'll send you an MFA code, right, to make sure it's you. So these are all things that, that's that type of endpoint protection. Even if you're just one person, is vital, because especially I think if you're, just starting out a business and you're setting everything up, if you were to get some sort of ransomware or infection on the only computer that you work on, it's probably a big deal. So endpoint detection and response is definitely a basic that you would want. Number three is email security and human awareness. What that means is you obviously want to, I think everyone, right, would want email security baked into their email solution. So if you do end up, getting email from someone, whether it's a Gmail or something like that, you want to make sure that you have like the business, software or the business subscription, right, for that. We'll go through a few email security providers a little later on. But you'll always want to sign up, for the business level program so that you can enable email security. The human awareness portion of things is end user training, which is super critical, because if you're not really trained on how to spot a phishing attempt, or what the correct protocol is when a email is asking you to do something risky, that is something that not everyone is always thinking about. But end user training so that they can spot fake emails, bad requests, know how to check an email for different signs of phishing, which, by the way, change periodically. We'll go over that. That sort of thing, those sort of things will sometimes be, your last line of defense, right? Your end user interacting with these cyber criminals is really, something that you want those folks trained on. And training isn't long. It's not like a week or even a full day. Usually it's about, 20 to 30 minutes, right? It's nothing crazy. Out of band verification on all requests. That's an example of, human awareness, right? My boss doesn't normally ask me to buy $1,000 worth of gift cards. I should probably call, right? Those are, things that end user training goes, through and you can exercise with, right? Last but not least, backups. Even if you think you have a backup, verify that you have a backup. Backups and ransomware in the AI era, you would want to make sure that your backup solution is automated, right? You don't have to necessarily think about it, right? It's scheduled at a certain period of time all the time, and that it's backing up to an immutable source. What that means is that once the data is written to that source, whether it's a cloud drive or a hard drive that's local, once it's written to that source, these drives don't allow you to edit the data that's been written. It will periodically just delete data, right? But it won't let you alter the data once it's written. And that's huge because that's your last line of defense. If you do get a ransomware attack, or if a cyber criminal deletes all of your data and you need to get that data back, or you need to get your computer back up and running again, the backups are your only option to go and recover that data, unless you're going to start completely from zero again, right? Please test those backups every 90 days. That will take you, a little bit of time, but it's worth it in the event of something happening. Those are the four basic controls that matter the most. And throughout this presentation, we are going to have questions and answers. So if you guys do, just pop them in the chat. We'll go through them, or raise your hand if you need. One of the items that we wanted to touch on as well is AI. I think a lot of folks are very familiar with, using corporate email or, social engineering attempts. But artificial intelligence is something that is being rapidly adopted across the SMB market. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce cites that 60% of small to medium businesses are already using some sort of AI platform. And the GAM tech study finds that AI adoption is now at 62%, which is higher than predicted, to be honest. Now, there are some productivity benefits, right? To AI, employees save on average 5 hours per week, and it reduces operational costs. It's done a great job at automating repetitive tasks, allows your employees to continue doing other items and let the automated tasks run for themselves, which is great. And SMBs are no longer, just experimenting with AI. They're putting in full integration from, chat agents on their websites to, marketing, cold calling, right? Outbound. Those are all things that have now been fully automated with AI and can integrate into a business. So, AI is no longer just something that is, being felt out by the industry. A lot of folks are using it, and it's now become something that is giving folks a competitive edge over companies that don't use it, right? At the same time, it's also created added risk for the small to medium business market. It has increased AI-powered attacks 340% in 2025. So most of the attacks, as we now mentioned earlier, that we see going on are actually powered and coded by artificial intelligence. Because of that, success rates of those attacks have increased from 12% to 54 to 78%, depending on the industry. So, the AI-powered attacks have been more successful, especially since a lot of folks don't necessarily, go through end user training. And that, creates a pretty big risk, which is why in our suggestion for endpoint detection and response, we did add in there something that has AI visibility, right? So that it can detect risky behavior when using an AI platform. And so while AI is the biggest opportunity for an SMB, it's also creating the biggest risk for them, apart from phishing, right? Phishing is still the number one, attack vector, but phishing has been enhanced by AI agents who are now using AI to craft better emails, right? You could sometimes spot a phishing email because it had poor grammar, right, or misspellings or things like that. Now that they're using AI, that is not as common, and so they've been more successful. So those are items that we want to make you guys aware of, and also have you protect yourselves over. One example in particular that had really come to mind is a AI attack in small and medium business where they were having AI powered invoice fraud. So they would send an invoice via email, and because the email was formulated so well, which included updated banking details, signature formatting, an email that looked exactly like the real vendor's email, right? Because they can have AI essentially copy the email from its source code. Um, and that normally that process, if you did it by hand, would take you a long time. AI is making that time shorter, so now they're able to do it. Those kinds of attacks can actually uh, hinder your business because folks will pay that invoice, right? And now it is a fraudulent payment. It's a fraudulent email, but the telltale signs of that phishing attempt are not as obvious as they were before. So it's while it's still sort of emerging, we are seeing trends in that cybersecurity risk area.
Ron, we have a question really quick. Someone said that increase is alarming. Would using AI in my business make me more or less vulnerable to AI powered attacks?
It doesn't make you more or less vulnerable because folks are they're just using the same tools you are, right, to help them craft a better attack, right? So that's a great question. Um, and it's actually twofold, right? So the threat actors on one side, the threat actors are using AI to craft better attacks. On the other side, if you are interacting with your AI platform and sending the platform data that you consider sensitive, then that in and of itself is a security risk, right? Because let's say you're a company that deals with people's personal information, name, address, social security number, credit card numbers, right? Things like that. If you were to upload that data to, let's say, ChatGPT and say, hey, here's all of my customer information, can you generate a report to see all the customers that have not purchased something in 30 days? AI will spit that back out for you pretty easily. But now there's a copy of that data in ChatGPT servers, right? And by their license agreement, they own that data. So if they have a breach, now you're the one that exposed that data, which exposes you to risk, right? So there's two avenues for that. It's a great question. It won't make you more or less vulnerable, and but it does create a avenue for easy data leakage, right? That's where you voluntarily have put data in a place where it can get stolen, right? So great question. uh, what does a good operating model look like? So we went through the items that you should be taking a look at, right? The four basic items. Here is the vendors that can help you at low to no cost, right? Microsoft 365 with multi-factor authentication and conditional access. Microsoft 365 starts at about $6 a month. It has multi-factor authentication, it has conditional access, and it's a great place for all small businesses to start, right? Endpoint and AI DR, which is artificial intelligence detection and response. CrowdStrike is a great product. There's also Microsoft Defender for Business. That is an added cost to get all the bells and whistles there. But CrowdStrike starts at I believe $16 for the year, which is a great price, and it goes all the way higher than that. I think the highest one is about $80 for the year. But it's still a good place to it's a great place to start. Microsoft Defender for Business is about the same, and it would be right rolled into your Microsoft account. Email, M365 Defender, Checkpoint, Barracuda. These are all, so Microsoft, Checkpoint, and Barracuda are three vendors who have advanced defense capabilities that start as low as $2, right? And they're really good vendors to tie into your email and your email security. Cloud file sharing. So this is your Dropbox, your Ignite, your OneDrive. They do have free subscriptions there if you're not using too much data. So you can definitely take a look at that. And they all have something called versioning, which means if you work on a file and then you save it, you could technically revert back to the previous version of the file that you were working on in the case that you have some sort of cyber attack that messes up your current files, right? And last but not least is backup. So Microsoft and Veeam, Acronis, Carbonite, they all have backup solutions. The only one that is quote unquote free, and Microsoft, if you have their, I think their $12 plan, you can actually do a backup of like all of your personal files, like your desktop, your My Documents, and things like that to the cloud, which is great. And while that won't help you in terms of like your actual computer and its operating system, it does help you with the actual data that lives on it. So that's good. In terms of operational habits, a good stack would definitely start with cyber breach insurance. So when you get your errors and omissions or whatever other type of insurance you need for your business to operate, make sure that your policy has a cybersecurity breach protection, right? If you do get some sort of cybersecurity event that exposes people's personal data for one reason or another, so that means like if you take credit cards or if you have a database of your customers for marketing purposes, if that data gets leaked or breached somehow, the insurance policy does a great job of covering the costs that a lot of folks don't think about, right? You'll need to engage a lawyer, or you'll have to have data recovery services. It'll cover downtime, lost revenue, things, all of those things that you don't necessarily think about, as you're going through business operations. That insurance plan coverage will help you regain some, if not all, of those costs. And it's a big thing. So definitely start with that. End user training for users, we recommend at least twice a year. Once a quarter is great, but at least twice a year end user training, and you can get those for free on YouTube. Just make sure it's something that's up to date, posted within the last year, right? You can also sign up for services, just so you know. All of the folks that are listed on the left will give you some sort of end user training for cybersecurity. Define an AI use policy and keep it updated. What that means is if you do have, whether it's yourself or you have multiple employees, define what your AI use policy is, and try not to, if you're going to make changes or update it, review it at least once a year. What that means in terms of an AI use policy is what platform for AI is going to be allowed to be used by the company, what data you're permitting users to upload to that AI and what capacity or job roles are allowed to do that. For example, one example would be we are going to use ChatGPT. You are allowed to send any data that's not financial or personally protected information. So, if it's medical, right, like no medical records, right? You also cannot use any legal, right? And just so you know, I'm just making this up, right, for a company. This isn't a guideline, right? To say don't upload any legal cases, right? If there's a lawsuit going on, and the departments that are allowed to use it are HR and finance and facilities management, right, or like janitorial, right? You just pick the departments. If you define a policy, it will help you configure that endpoint detection and response so that you can get alerted when people are sharing stuff that they shouldn't share. But it all begins and ends with that use policy because you can't configure something that you don't know, what should be, allowed and not allowed, right? The policy is sort of what sets that. Um, some real items that you'll want to think twice about: financial data, right? Obviously, it AI can definitely help in finance and inside things like QuickBooks and whatnot. And QuickBooks does, for example, come with AI tools if you're using the online portion. But aside from that AI tool, if you're taking your financial reporting or your financial data and then uploading it to do more, analytics with it, you really have to be careful of what type of data that is, right? If you're, maybe you don't want to be uploading all of your revenue info, right, to ChatGPT or other platforms if you don't want that to be, one day, right, leaked or shared. To give you an example, Microsoft, which holds a lot of people's data, and Google have all had breaches where the data has been, put into cyber threat actors' hands, and that may include, intellectual property, finance data, things like that, that are then later used to better craft cybersecurity threats, right? So just keep that kind of stuff in mind when you're building your AI use policy. In terms of timing, there is three options. There are three things you should be doing: monthly, quarterly, and annually, right? Monthly, you should review any alerts and your Windows patching. Your alerts would be from any one of those platforms. Quarterly is a backup restore test. All the backups that you've been doing once a quarter, you should test them to make sure that they're actually restorable, right? And then annual is a basic security review, going over all four of these, all five of these items and making sure that you're like, oh, okay, do I need to still implement something that I haven't implemented, right? Or make changes to the current, subscriptions that I have. All in all, that's pretty much the basics. You will avoid about 80%, 80 to 90% of the threats out there if you're putting in, these items correctly, and you should be in good shape.
Ron, we have a question. I'm not sure if what you just answered it though or not, but someone asked, how can small businesses protect themselves if they also use phones as part of their day-to-day operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So the solutions that I had mentioned earlier, let me just go back up here. So endpoint detection and response. Oh, oops. Endpoint detection and response. So endpoint slash AIDR. Those vendors, Microsoft, CrowdStrike, I'll name two more. SentinelOne is another vendor. So all of those vendors have agents that you can put on your phone or your iPad or your tablet that also keep you protected on those mobile devices. For example, Microsoft has Intune, which is their mobile device version of endpoint management, and you'll be able to install Microsoft Defender through Intune and keep yourself protected there. And that's really the best. That's really the best option. Any other questions? Open for discussion too. If you guys had any questions at all, IT related.
Looks like you're good so far, but I'll let you know. And if anyone wants to if you have a question that you don't want to type and you just want to say, that's okay too. You don't have to send it in the chat.
I will be sending slides, Elena.
Okay, great, thank you. We also record the meeting. So I did say earlier, I sent the link in the chat to where we keep all of our recorded workshops on our website as well. But we can also send out the slides. Someone said, not a question, but I worry about using bio-identifiers. I avoid using Face ID to unlock my phone, for example.
Yeah, bio identifiers. So essentially the process that happens there is, they take a scan of either your face or your fingerprint, then they create what's called a digital token that lives inside the device. That digital token is a series of numbers and letters. And that series of numbers and letters is used as your authentication as long as the biometric read is correct. So if you ever notice when you're say your Face ID, so you're using most likely Apple, anytime you set up a new Apple device, it asks to rescan your face, right? And that's because that digitized token doesn't live on the cloud, right? It doesn't live in the network, right? It lives on the actual device. So you don't have to necessarily avoid using it. It's not that token that's being used, that's generated, isn't usable anywhere else besides the device, right? So when you do a Face ID, the authentication request isn't just the token that's sent, it's the token along with the machine ID. So the two of those together act as your authentication into your iCloud. When you have another phone, like let's say you have a second phone or a third or fourth, when you do the Face ID, it generates a completely separate token and pairs it with that device ID and sends it that way. So you don't necessarily have to avoid it. It's not something that, if compromised, could be used somewhere else, is my point. At least with Apple or iPhone, each one of those biometric unlocks or biometric identifiers you should use at your own discretion. No one is at the moment, no one's requiring that, right, from any one of those vendors. So if you don't want to use it, by all means don't, but you should have a second form of authentication. Usually I'm a big proponent of, the authenticator applications. So I would suggest that, but Face ID and biometric, you can use safely, but at your own discretion. No one's making you do it. If you don't feel comfortable, don't.
She just said, someone said, what types of data are most valuable to attackers? What are you seeing out there at the moment, and how quickly can you recover operations after an attack?
Very good question. So what type of data is most valuable to attackers? That's an awesome question. I actually had a slide in the previous technology focused presentation that went over all of the data that they would like to get. But as a high level, attackers want to get personally identifying information first. So they want to get name, address, email, phone number, those kinds of real basic things. And that's because that's the building block, right, of an identity. But that's also the least valuable because some of that is publicly accessible, right? So the base layer of what they want in terms of data is the basic information. After that, it goes into what's called personally identifiable high value info, social security numbers, bank accounts, doctor's offices, medical records, bank statements, purchase history, things that you would probably give to like a marketing company, even though you haven't signed up for marketing emails, right? That's the second most valuable, second highest, tier in that value system. Above that is going to be, hard to get items, passport information, social security numbers, actual credit card numbers, banking numbers, routing numbers, um, wiring transfers, banking activity in and of itself, purchase activity, like verified purchase activity, things that they can use to impersonate you, recordings of your voice, um, biometric data, right? For example, all of those things that are much harder to get, that's definitely a high value target. And a lot of businesses actually, um, store this data, maybe with or without their knowledge, but they do have it, right? Or they have some of it. And that's really what we're seeing attackers go after in terms of stealing people's identities. Furthermore, attackers want to gain ransom or money, right, from data. So they also want companies' data. So their financial data, their employee data, their customer data, um, uh, intellectual property, patents, drawings, things like that, recipes, all that kind of stuff. Anything that you use on a day to day that's on your computer, what they want to do with that data isn't necessarily steal it. Of course, they'll want to steal it, right? They will. But more importantly, if they're looking for a payday, they will gain access to your machine and encrypt it so that you can't use it until you pay them, right? Um, Furthermore, with those attacks, in order to incentivize you to pay them to unlock your computer, they will try to get access to your social media accounts or your website. And they'll say, this company has been hacked, don't buy from them, blah, 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 et cetera, right? In order to incentivize you to pay that ransom. The answer to your second part of your question, how quickly can you recover operations after an attack, is all dependent on how good of a backup you have. That backup is your last line of resort, right? Someone has gotten access to your system and ransomed you for something. Obviously never pay the ransom, restore the data, and how quickly you restore that data depends on if you've been testing your backup every 90 days. And whatever that test is how quickly you can recover, right? Some recovery methods are quicker than others if you have the investment for that. But most folks, on average, take anywhere from 5 to 2 weeks. So 5 days to 14 days to fully recover operations after a ransomware attack. Longer if it's data leakage, right? Like if they didn't ransomware you, they just stole your customer data and now they're, using that as data exploitation. And what that means is, let's say I'm a cybersecurity threat actor and I've successfully stolen your customer database. Now I'm sending fake invoices to all of your customers and they're paying me, right? That is much longer. And that's the kind of thing that you would need cyber breach insurance for as well, because now you sort of have to go out, you have to, go out, tell all of your customers that this has happened, give them some sort of, you know, uh, remedy to their issue, try to recover your brand, right? Because now your customers are like, I don't know if I want to actually, buy there anymore, right? Um, and there's so much more legwork to do after that. That kind of attack is much longer on average, 30 days to 6 months. So it really just depends on the kind of attack, right? But that's the average time frame that you're looking at. Ransomware, 7 to 14 days. Uh, Data leakage, 30 to 120 days. I hope that answered the questions.
And then we have someone said, when should a small business bring in an external IT or cybersecurity provider?
I believe that external IT folks can use that kind of expertise as small as one person, right? If you don't want to handle any of this, bringing in an outside IT, or cybersecurity provider could help from day one. And like I said, pricing for all of those items that we listed, those are all publicly priced things. So, you shouldn't pay more than what MSRP is on those websites, right? If your external IT provider is saying, "Hey, we're going to sign you up for the Microsoft Security Suite," well, that Microsoft Security Suite is all published pricing, right? They shouldn't be charging you more for that suite, right? They could charge you for their services, installation, et cetera, right? But those things should be small monthly or a one-time cost. Usually we see folks bring in a cybersecurity provider in two stages. When they first start, right, to get, just themselves, one user worked out. And then when they start growing to, 5 or 10 employees, then it's usually an external companies coming in, or they're doing it themselves, right, in-house. If you have a brick and mortar site, like a store, like a retail store, it will definitely help you there, because there's other things you'll need to worry about, right? Like point of sale networks, point of sale security, guest Wi-Fi, menu, digital signages, things like that. That's kind of outside cybersecurity, but all of those IT companies will do that, right, for you as well. So if you're a one person shop, out of your garage, it would still be, kind of worth it. But you can take that last, the second to last slide here, and just sort of go at it yourself for a little bit if you're just a one person show.
And then it looks like the last question says, one company I worked for required me to install an app that I didn't trust. Is there any way to check for nefarious behavior after they are installed? Do you have any suggestions for best practices for use installing unknown apps?
Yeah. So a company you work for required you to install an app that you didn't trust. Okay. So let's be clear about the ask, right? If you are an employee of another company, or if you're an employee at a company, bringing your own device, it depends on who owns this device, right? If this is your iPhone that you pay Verizon or whoever your provider is, and you own this phone, there is no requirement for you to install. They cannot legally require you to install apps that you don't want on your phone, right? They can provide you a phone that has, whatever apps they want on it, but what's called a BYOD, or bring your own device policy, is optional. You don't need to do that. Now, how can you check if if the app that they wanted you to, or that they had you install, is a legitimate app? that's actually very easy. There is an app library. Let me see if I could find the link here. Um, do you have it? I know in the iPhone they have a store that has like ratings, right? Um, but yeah, so the two items that I have for you is in the App Store. They'll list the developer name as well as reviews and ratings, and as well as app permissions, so that um, what's going on, right? And then if you want, I will copy and paste a link here, um, that will essentially show you that will do a search for you on your app or website URL, and it will evaluate that URL to see if it's a malicious app. So I'm going to pop that right here in the chat. And essentially, what you do is there's an app download link that's in the Apple Store. You take that app download link and you put it in the URL section, and it will scan that URL for malicious or reputable or reputation based scans. And that's probably the best way. Um, Usually, you'll be okay if it's from a larger name company that you might know. So BYOD policies are usually set forth by a company through a technology provider like Microsoft or Cisco, Avaya, those kinds of names. So you can also take the name of the app and pop a search on that, and it should bring up, a vendor. And usually, if it's a big name vendor, you'd be okay. Um, the App Store should also list what permissions and data it's getting. Um, the app permissions, if it's asking for permission to, like your local file system or something like that, that's a pretty big red flag. That means it's gonna, read all of the files on your phone. So it's kind of a big no-no. But for the most part, most bring your own device vendors are pretty safe to put on.
And they clarified and said, for context, it was my personal phone, and I was required to install it in order to access my work email on my phone.
Mm.
I had multiple jobs that used Outlook for email. Their app required me to log in via their app daily to open Outlook. What if it's a company I don't trust? Can I tell what they might be doing on my phone?
Mm. So Outlook is a 100% safe program, right, to use. Um, and if you're using any other type of app, then you might just be using a different type of email provider. Outlook is used for Gmail. Gmail uses Google Mail, right? Um, Apple uses just what they call the Apple Mail app, right? And that's usually installed by default on every Apple phone. Once you get out of those three, um, that's a little tough to sort of say whether or not it's nefarious or not. Um, so if you want to check what's going on your phone in particular, there is a spyware detection tool, um, that you can install on your phone, that will help you see if that app is doing something that it's not supposed to be doing, right? Um, iOS is locked down, in terms of your, like, what folks can do on the phone, as is most of, the other, Google points. Endpoint detection and response will also help you with that. Like if you have like a CrowdStrike on your iPhone, it will say, hey, this app is reading, XYZ. Are you sure you want to continue to allow, right? So you could definitely check CrowdStrike and Microsoft Defender for that. They will do scanning on your mobile device. There are third party tools as well that are just iPhone uh, scanners to monitor what an app is doing that you can get out there, and that's really up to you. If you still have to access that email, you can try to do it just through the regular, browser, um, and go from there. And uninstall the app, right? Because if you can get to the email through a regular browser, you can just open the browser on your phone. If that makes sense.
She just then asked, are there any for Android phones?
Can you clarify on that? Any what for Android phones?
And Jackie, you can feel free to speak. She said apps that aren't Apple, I guess, in regards to what you were just talking about, like.
Okay, yeah.
Not for iPhones.
Yeah. So I will put a malware bytes for mobile security. Let me just copy this link here. This is both Android and iPhone. And it essentially will scan your phone for malware, spyware, and risky apps. It detects phishing and scam messages. It can analyze suspicious texts and screenshots. So, you can have, that type of software on your phone that will sort of scan each app and make sure that they're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing. As well as if a phone is, or if an app is acting as spyware rather than what they're actually meant to be doing, which is email, right?
Okay, and I guess there aren't any other questions. Leslie, you can wrap us up if you want. It looks like we're okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, I see there are no more questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron, for coming. We appreciate having you back again. It's always a good presentation. And someone said thank you in the chat. Thank you. All right, good. All right, thank you, everybody. Like I said, this will be posted on our website where we keep all of our workshop recordings, and there will just be a quick survey when you sign off the Zoom that we just ask you all to fill out. It should only take a couple minutes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ron. Take care. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Have a great day.